One question from Lindsay Lohan is suddenly changing how people see her entire past. Why didn't anyone protect her? In a deeply reflective new interview with Vogue Arabia, the now 39-year-old actress is looking back at the height of her fame with a level of clarity we haven't heard before, and instead of nostalgia, she's offering perspective. Lindsay describes her early Hollywood years as overwhelming and consuming, admitting that while much of it looked glamorous from the outside, it felt suffocating behind the scenes. She even says part of her wishes she had listened to her parents and left Los Angeles earlier, possibly returning to New York. But at the time she was young, ambitious, and deeply immersed in a culture that rewarded exposure over protection. As a teenager surrounded by constant cameras, intense scrutiny, and a hyper-visible social circle that included names like Paris Hilton and Britney Spears, Lindsay was living in an era where young stars were put under a microscope in real time. But the most striking part of her reflection is the shift in perspective. Looking back now, she says she wonders why no one stepped in to pull her out of that environment, admitting that as a teenager, you don't know how to protect yourself. That single realization reframes her entire story, shifting it away from the narrative of personal failure and toward a broader question about how young celebrities were treated during the early 2000s. For years, headlines focused on the stakes and chaos, but Lindsay's words introduce a different lens, one rooted in vulnerability, pressure, and the absence of boundaries in an era driven by relentless tabloid culture. And part of why this reflection is resonating so strongly now is because the culture itself has changed. The same media environment that once thrived on public meltdowns is now being re-examined, and in that context, Lindsay's perspective feels less like an excuse and more like hindsight. She explains that during those years, she felt surrounded by too many voices guiding her in different directions, leaving little room for her own instincts, and that chaos ultimately pushed her to step away from the spotlight altogether. That decision marked the beginning of a transformation. Today, Lindsay's life looks completely different. She's married to financier Bader Shammas, a mother to a young son, and living a far more grounded and private lifestyle. When she returned to acting in 2022, she did so on her own terms, with clear boundaries and a renewed sense of control that she says she never had before. She describes finally feeling like she's steering her own ship, and that metaphor captures the real shift in her story. This isn't just about a comeback, it's about autonomy. Her reflection also taps into a broader cultural reevaluation of early 2000s celebrity culture, a time that many people are now viewing with more empathy and awareness. As audiences revisit that era with fresh eyes, Lindsay's voice adds a powerful first-hand perspective, transforming her from a tabloid subject into a narrator of her own history. And that role reversal matters because when public figures reclaim their stories, they reshape how they're remembered. Looking ahead, Lindsay's words suggest a future built on intention rather than spectacle. She may continue sharing her past in thoughtful, measured ways while choosing projects that align with the life she's built now, rather than the chaos she once lived through. Whatever direction she takes, one thing is clear. She's no longer chasing the spotlight, she's controlling it. And in the end, with one simple but haunting question, why didn't anyone protect her? Lindsay Lohan hasn't just revisited her past, she's reframed it. And in doing so, she's changed how an entire era of Hollywood is remembered.